right. Welcome to the Kratom Sobriety Podcast. This is Lauren, and I have Hans here with me today. How are you today, Hans?
I'm doing well, Lauren. I've listened to a lot of this podcast over the course of the last couple of years, so it's nice to finally be a part of it.
Awesome. We normally ask, how would you introduce yourself if you're meeting somebody new?
I would say I'm Hans. My interests are I love sports, I love fitness, I like to read, I like to challenge myself, I kind of embrace discomfort, and I'm a pretty fun person. Can be funny at times, and I think generally just enjoyable to be around when I'm
Okay.
sober. I'm creative.
Absolutely. And then what is your Kratom quit date then?
So my Kratom quit date, it's funny you asked that. I'm glad you asked that. It was originally April 7th of 2025, April 6th or April 7th. I relapsed at 9.5 months. So I think I had emailed you guys to be a guest on the podcast when I was still sober, when I was probably 8 or 9 months sober. And then I relapsed in January. And my new sober date is April of 2026, April 27th. So I don't know what the exact day count is, 50 days.
Oh,
It was a little 2.5 month or 3 month kratom bender, if you will. I will say though that my 7OH sober date is April 5th of 2025. So I haven't touched 7OH for 14 months, thank God. This last time getting sober was a lot easier because I did my best to manage the relapse and until I was able to step away from life and get sober again, if that makes sense.
oh, it totally makes sense. And I had a couple relapses here and there. It's just so hard on your first go, and some people do have on your first go, and recovery can be just that. We don't have to have relapse in our story, but some people do, and recovery is not linear. It's not the same for one person to the next. I'm proud of you for having the 56 days. I mean,
Thank you.
I know you've got to be feeling better.
I do. I do. I definitely feel a lot better. Kratom is such a insidious beast. It just crept up on me like the relapse at 9 months. For 2 weeks leading up to the relapse, I was just having these insane cravings, and I was just like, I don't know if you ever have done much in the 12-step world, but they talk a lot about irritability, discontent, and restlessness. And I was experiencing an anxiety like all three or four of those things in the 2 weeks leading up to my relapse in January. Past is the past. I can't really have any regrets now, but I wish I would have communicated that to, because I have a great sober community. I was a little bit like, I don't know, I don't want to say ashamed to admit that I was struggling at like around 9 months, but in a way it was like in my head, oh, I've got 9.5 months. Like I shouldn't be having these issues. Like I can. And it was just for a 2 week period. Like I can just white knuckle it and tough it out, and this too shall pass. And there was like multiple times where I got my vehicle, like during the workday, working from home. I got my vehicle and I sat in my vehicle, like preparing to drive to the gas station or to the smoke shop. And then took a deep breath and I talked myself out of it. I'm like, nope, I'm not doing this. I'm not relapsing. And that happened 3 or 4 times until I acted on it. Right.
I think that you described perfectly. Like, I remember sitting outside in my car and I was saying out loud to myself, okay, this is it. This is the last one. This is the last one. I'm not doing this again tomorrow. I
Yeah.
just have to do ABC. And
Mm.
so it just gets to that point. But let's go back to your first contact with Kratom or how this started. Do you have any addiction in your past besides this?
I listening to the podcast, I assumed that question would come up, and the answer is yes. I so I'm 35, and when I was 22, I checked myself into inpatient treatment, a 28-day program for opiate addiction. I was just a wild child basically from 18 to or 17 to 22. And I had gotten addicted to the harder stuff like the oxys and the Dilaudids and the morphine, and it even dabbled in some fentanyl and heroin and all that whole world. And then I had, I don't even know how to explain it. I had a pretty intense moment in May of 2013 where I just saw myself at my own funeral and no one was there other than like my parents, and it was just super sad. And so I rushed to my dad's house and I said, I got to go to rehab right now. We got to take care of this. And I did that, and I have been sober from all of those harder drugs for 13 years. But I found kratom, and so yes, I do have a history of addiction. And then my 20s were amazing. After I got sober from those, I became a recreational just drinker. I went to college, I got my master's degree, and like loved college, fully embraced everything in school, and all played all the intramurals, went to the college parties, and like just all that past me it was in the rear view mirror. And then I didn't really get introduced to kratom until like my late 20s, and I did not care for it initially, which I think is funny because I hear a lot of that in this podcast as well. I had a buddy that would just buy like the giant plain leaf bags off the internet, right? Like he'd just buy it in bulk, and he'd have the red strain and the green strain and the white strain. And I remember trying it a few times and thinking, oh, that's kind of interesting, but like it just didn't really, it just didn't really grab a hold of me. I felt like I had to take so much powder before I ever felt anything. And by the time I'd taken enough to feel anything, I'd feel sick from just taking too much powder. Right. And I think what changed was when I found the extract shots. That is when I was like, oh, there might be something to this here. But even with the extract shots, for a long time, I could pick them up and set them and leave them for months at a time or even years at a time. My kratom use definitely picked up when in my, I think I was 32, 3 years ago, I made this resolve to like, I felt like my drinking started to, like the fun stopped a little bit with the drinking in my early 30s after my like big dirty 30 party. And so I decided I think I want to be alcohol free. And I found that taking kratom, like the kratom extracts in the evenings, could keep me from drinking at all, right? Like I could be content without drinking in the evenings. And to be honest, like I didn't really see any harm other than the financial piece of it. Like I thought I found like the cheat code to quitting drinking. And then eventually I quit everything except for the kratom extract shots. And I would say my life was like pretty good, but I was going to AA meetings as well, and I had a sponsor, and I noticed everyone in the rooms, they were having these experiences when they'd hit certain milestones, or at least it appeared to me that things were happening for them that I wasn't experiencing myself. I was just kind of not drinking, not doing drugs, just taking kratom, but life's not really changing all that dramatically for me. And at some point, I was like, maybe it's the kratom, and that's when it clicked with me. Okay, let's quit the kratom then. And when I attempted to quit the first time, I had withdrawals, and I was like, what the fuck? I couldn't quit. Anyway, I'll pause for a minute there because I'm rambling here. But
Oh, no. No, this is your story, and I think a lot of people would relate. I know I relate with that, absolutely. I was a lot of that. The alcohol kicks in or the previous opiate use. Not
yeah,
everybody has a previous drug use, but that's a lot of our stories,
mm,
and I think somehow our brain tricks ourselves to thinking that it's not like the other things.
yes,
And I told myself, there's no way I'm ever doing opiates again because of the withdrawal. And then here we
Yeah.
were with another opiate that I had no idea would cause that. So when you said you started, it was just a couple extracts here and there, right?
Yep.
How did it progress after you quit drinking?
It just became daily, and it became daily, which was hurting me financially because the 20 bucks an extract shot, and let's just even just one, I would sip them throughout the day so I could make one last me for 5 or 6 hours. But tolerance is a bitch, right? And one turned into two, and two turned into three. I never really I was able to maintain like three. I never really it got exceeded like three, maybe four max, but rarely would I ever do four in a day. That was just too much for me. It was like two or three, and it was never to for me, like one after a certain point, it was never to get high, right? It was just to kind of maintain that buzz. And I felt like Kratom tricked me into thinking that like it made me do my job better. I also was like, I work in a corporate consulting environment, high stress, a lot of travel, a lot of also working from home and a lot of long hours. And I was taking Adderall as well. And because I didn't want to drink, like the Kratom was a great combination or concoction with Adderall, like the two together just made me feel superhuman for a long time. But again, it's not, those things are never sustainable. And I hated what it did to my personality. That was like the biggest catalyst for me is that I just started to just pretty much isolate and like work, and I'd still go to the gym from time to time. But whenever I'd go socialize, especially without drinking, being on a little bit of Adderall and then a little bit of Kratom, I just felt like my personality was just like different, like dull, and people would say things that generally I would think would be funny. And I'd think in my head, it's funny, but I wouldn't really show any emotion. And I didn't like that aspect. Started to feel like the benefits that I initially like convinced myself were there were the negatives were outweighing the positives. And I knew deep down, like, this isn't sustainable. This isn't who I want to be long term. And so I had to start looking in the mirror. And I would say things got worse when I looked in the mirror and recognized, like, holy shit, I need to quit this. And then quitting and failing. That's when it, like, ignorance is bliss, right? In a lot of ways. And so when I was just doing my thing and taking it and not really asking myself the hard questions of, is this good? Should I be doing this? Life was a lot better once I started quitting or trying to quit. Things just got really hard. But I just, I set my mind to it. And so someone told me never quit quitting. So I just kept trying. My first quit attempt failed miserably. My second quit attempt failed miserably. My third quit attempt I have them all. I'm a numbers guy. My third quit attempt was in May of 2024, and I went 70 days off of everything, and I detoxed myself over a weekend. I didn't take any work off. I basically just worked from home Friday, threw all the kratom away that I had Thursday night. The withdrawals started to hit towards the tail end of work on Friday, right? So I was useless by the end of the day, but then it was the weekend. And I leaned on a community of dudes that I told I was going to quit. And they just didn't take care of me, but they answered my phone or their phones when I called and took me to a few meetings. But for the most part, I just locked myself in my house for a weekend and went to work Monday, was still withdrawing, but it was not horrible. And I feel like that 70 days I got, the first 2 or 3 weeks of work, I felt useless because I quit everything, right? And the Adderall, which for some reason, whenever I take Adderall, I instantly go back to the kratom. So I've decided I can't do either. But then I relapsed and used again for another 2.5 months. And I did the same thing, but took a Thursday, Friday off work to make it a little more bearable and made it 49 days. That second quit attempt off of everything. I wasn't using any helper drugs, no Suboxone, nothing. It was supplements, and then relapsed again, and that was towards the end of 2024. Then in 2020, to the very end of 2024, I got sober again for 40 days, and then relapsed in 2025. And that's when things got really bad. They got bad quick, not from a external standpoint, like from people looking at me, like I never, like things around me hadn't fallen apart yet. But I decided to try 7-OH, like curiosity killed the cat in 2025. And I was just really curious, like, what is this stuff that everyone's talking about? And they're calling it gas station heroin. And I had already relapsed. I tried it and oh my gosh, it was like, first time I tried it, I was like, oh shit. It reminded me of 13 years ago. I was like, this is like the real deal. I threw everything away after that first high of 7-OH. It was like a Saturday night. And I was like, I cannot never touch this again. Right. And then the next day, all I could think about was 7-OH on that Sunday. And so I said, all right, I'll just go to the store and get just a little bit for today. And then the 7-OH became a daily thing to the point where April of last year, I actually checked myself into inpatient treatment again, which was very humbling. I took short term disability and an FMLA leave of absence from my corporate consulting job. It was humiliating to have to do that, and it was a 60-day program, and it was really hard, and it quite frankly sucked. Like I never wanted to do something like that again. I did their 6-month intensive outpatient as well. I just was like, I had hit the point where I was like, I'm done with these short term quits and then relapses. I'm just gonna go all in, and if I have to set, if I have to let some things go from like a career standpoint or whatever else, like I want to be all in on getting off this stuff because I am just like disrupting my life. My For the last 3 years, I've been off and on battling this stuff, and it's been pretty like miserable. There's been some bright moments in between, but so that's how I got the 9.5 months. And then this last relapse, thank God, again, I didn't use 7-OH, but that was hard in its own right because I finally had gotten like a decent chunk of time. So my ego really just like I didn't know how to pull myself out of it. I kind of just, I didn't want to go back to rehab, but I talked to a good friend who I got sober with in inpatient last year. He's still sober. He's now been sober 14 months. And he talked me into, he basically said, you should, what I was going to do is quit my job. I was convinced that I was not going to be able to get sober unless I put work aside because I was getting worked to death in the last 3.5, 4 months, like 70-hour weeks, traveling and just using Kratom all day long and Vyvanse, this time not Adderall, but similar type of drug. And I started to have this anxiety and fear that I was gonna die, right? I just felt like I'm working a ton, I'm taking stimulants, I'm taking Kratom, I'm not getting a ton of sleep, but my heart's just gonna stop one of these days. I'm no longer spring chicken. And anyway, this buddy of mine convinced me to try for short term disability and FMLA one more time. And again, this is my second time doing it in a year. I'd never done anything like this my entire life prior to this. Even when I went to treatment when I was 22, I didn't have a job then. I hadn't even gone to college yet at that point. But I did a 45-day program. I'm really grateful for my company. They gave me 100% pay during the whole 45 days. Nothing changed from an income standpoint. I don't know how many more, knock on wood, how many more blessings like that I have. So this time I reevaluated what went wrong and buckled back up and I'm trying again.
Yep. I like that when you said, what did you say about never give up trying?
Never
Just keep
quit
trying.
quitting. Never quit
Yeah,
quitting?
never quit
Yeah, yeah,
quitting. I like
yeah,
that. I like that a
yeah.
lot because we don't know when our last use is until we look back. So if we keep trying to quit, eventually that will be our last use.
Yeah.
And so I totally that's so relatable, and I did end up losing my job. So I'm actually really glad to hear that you were able to stay and they were supportive. Did you tell them what was going on, or did you just say, "I need some time off"?
Gosh, this last time around, I just I just checked myself into a treatment center, and then I texted him a few days later. I sent him an email like a day before that, and I said, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to take a day or two, and then jumped into treatment. So I don't actually go back to work until June 30th, and there's still some conversations I have to have, and there's a possibility that I might actually step away for some time, and because I am fearful that adding too much to my plate too quick it will result. I don't want to add too much to my plate too quick. So that's something I'm kind of working through over the next week. I'm gonna have to have some hard conversations and set some clear boundaries if I do return to work, at least in the short term, to protect my sobriety. And I hate doing all that stuff. It's embarrassing for me, but it is what it is. And I think the hard thing too has been definitely for like my I'm not married and I don't have any kids, but I'm pretty close to my sister and my parents. I have one sibling and they don't I live 10 hours away from all of them, so they don't live in my vicinity, but going to treatment, unfortunately, like cat's out of the bag, whatever that phrase is. Like I hit it pretty well, and but I just couldn't do it by myself, and they worry, and I just do my best to. Hey, what can you do, right? And my actions have to just speak louder than my words, and that's hard. My sister's getting married in 3 months. She wants me to officiate her wedding, but I think she is now a little bit on pins and needles because I slipped up, and so I'm having to rebuild her confidence. And I don't know, this stuff is just it's I'm ready for it to be behind me.
And it takes what it takes for the recovery to set in, it just does. I mean, the things that I went through until I got to recovery, if some people would be like, "Isn't that enough? Isn't that enough? I mean, is the next thing enough?" And then
Yeah.
you're like, "I don't know. It took what it took for us." Going back to the relapses and things, what were some of the if someone is on here that wants to quit and hasn't, what are some of the withdrawals that you were going through in the beginning and maybe as it progressed?
The withdrawals, body aches, restless legs, like irritability, like not being able to sleep. Appetite, I think, was mostly manageable. I think the just like the feeling like your skin is crawling. Yeah, it was for sure the hardest part, and the lack of sleep and the achiness and your legs at night or during the day just feeling like they wanna run a marathon when you're trying to sleep. I would say those were the worst. Anxiety and panic attacks as well. I would say I don't consider myself overly anxious beyond maybe the human experience generally, but man, during my kratom days, the anxiety I would get sometimes at night or just, oh shoot, I think I took a little bit too much and I'm feeling kind of weird and did I overdo it? And I'd lay in bed thinking I'm I don't know, about to die or overdose or whatever. And some of that stuff, it would, I didn't have any of that in the beginning, but it all started to occur towards the end. And I think it was just partially due to this internal struggle of I was doing something that I actively did not want to do multiple times a day. And that duality, if you will, created a lot of turmoil in my head and in my body. And most of it I kept to myself. I just pretended like things were okay. And
Oh,
just having to bring it everywhere, bring it on planes to make sure that I could take it on work trips. It was bring it to the client site and have it shoved in my pockets and have to sneak away to the bathroom and sneak into a random stall and lock the stall and slug half of a shot and then go back to work like that, or sneak out during my lunch break in another state and find a smoke shop somewhere nearby and buy kratom and then take it and then throw away the packaging and then go back into work, and it just is horrible, horrible.
And it just seems like it just I don't know about you, but I'll speak for myself. It just seemed like it just happened. One day I just woke up and I was just there, like where it had just consumed my being and everything. And I know you said you hid it well. I think it's interesting that kratom is so isolating. It's not something I've said before, it's not like a party drug. It's not like go out and everybody takes some kratom. So was there
Yeah.
anybody in your life that knew while you were taking it?
No, not really. Other than my and still even a lot of my close friends at home, the ones that did find out because they reached out to my parents like, "Hey, we can't get a hold of Hans. Have you talked to him?" And my dad told a few select people that I was close to. Even them, they just assumed it was for alcohol. It's like I'm kinda, like, still a little, like, ashamed of it to certain people that there's, like, this school of thought that just looks at kratom as this basic gas station supplement or whatever. But to answer your question, the only real people that knew were my parents when I told them. That was it, I think. That was it. Yeah, even my relationships, I was dating this girl who moved in with me for a bit, and she knew something was up, but, like, I would wake and I wasn't drinking or doing anything else during the time I was with her, so I told her I was sober, and I'd go to
Mhm.
AA meetings, like, I'd leave the house to go to meetings and stuff, but I would wake up before her in the morning, get up extra early, say something like I'm running to the grocery store to get some groceries to make breakfast, which I would do, but I would swing by the smoke shop and I would just get enough to get high and then just get rid of the packaging and I did that a lot. And I also, when I bought Kratom, I rarely bought it in bulk because I was so determined every time I bought it, this is going to be my life. This is going to be it. And so I made so many trips, countless trips to the gas stations and smoke shops. And I grew up in Idaho, and during most of this I lived in Idaho, which 7OH is legal along with all the extracts, and they're all over the place. They can be sold at gas stations, pretty much any establishment. So it was everywhere, right? It was every little corner. And I live in Utah now. I came out here actually to get sober May 6th while I was in treatment this last time. They actually banned all kratom extracts. So now there's no cryptic kratom or whatever those other brands are in the Mavericks, and there's no feel freeze. 7OH they banned like a year ago, which is part of the reason why, thank God, I've been off 7OH for 14 months. But I think I don't want to live in Utah forever, but it's a good place for me right now.
I know they took I live in Ohio, and they banned 7OH in December and made it a Schedule 1. I know it's catching on. Something I like to ask is, like, when you went into rehab or when you went to a doctor, anything, did people know what it was when you went in?
So out here, the treatment center I went to last year, it was all men's, like 28 dudes. It felt like a giant frat house, a sober frat house. It was bizarre. Never experienced anything like it. There was probably 10 plus people that were there for Kratom, 7OH specifically, and people that came from out of state. There's a guy that was from Miami, and Miami was super, or from Florida. I don't remember if it was Miami, but 7OH is everywhere in Florida, and he was out here. I need treatment for it. So they were definitely becoming in tune and accustomed to it, and they treated it. I did not get. I was really afraid that I was going to be like almost othered, right, for going to treatment for kratom, like when people were there for meth and heroin and fentanyl, and alcohol, having DTs and all the tremors and all that stuff. And that was not my experience at all. I was very grateful that the people in treatment knew were learning about it. They put me on a Suboxone taper, which I'm not gonna lie, I hated. It was a 9-day Suboxone taper, and that was like what they did for people coming in with kratom. I felt like that was major overkill for me. I just wanted to kind of do it cold turkey, and I suppose I could have, but they talked me into it, and the taper actually worked really well. I was surprisingly impressed with like how they did it. By day 9, I think I was down to half a milligram, and then day 10, I didn't really have any physical withdrawals. So I came off of kratom last year in that treatment center in a very humane way, right? It was very pain free for the most part, but 9 days on Suboxone I was not a fan of because I felt a little bit like I came here to get sober, not take Suboxone, but it was only 9 days, and I didn't have any. And then this last time, I just cold turkeyed it.
I hear mixed messages. Some people say the best way to get sober is just to go without anything. That way you feel the pain and
Yeah,
you suffer, all
you
those things.
suffer.
But
Yeah,
then also and I don't know, that easing off of it sometimes can just it sounds amazing to me. Didn't get
yeah.
that opportunity, but I don't know. It's just a trade-off. And the 9 days, you could have had comfort meds for 9 days too. I look at it that way. That's just my opinion. But
Totally,
and
totally. And I would probably tell someone I would recommend that place to someone who's really deep in kratom, but I also am very, I don't know, intentional and thoughtful and conscious of everyone's at different phases, and treatment is probably overkill for a lot of it could be overkill for certain people depending on where they're at in their addiction. For me, it was more beneficial, I think, for getting the pause on life and work as well, and getting the 60-day head start before jumping back into the world. Because I just when I'm out in the world, I like to think I'm like fairly ambitious and driven, and I just I take on too much too fast, and so having that pause to plan and to not be stressed with all these other things was super helpful, which is why I went back again, because I had proven to myself the previous 2 years that I can quit without treatment, but I relapsed in the first 60 days, you know, because all 3 of those times I had went prior to going to treatment. When I had quit the 70 days to 49 days and 40 days, I went cold turkey without any helper meds, just in my own house. But nothing else in my life changed. I still had to show up in all other areas of my life, and that became too much for me. So for the listeners, take that however you want. But
I definitely see the benefit in that
yeah,
time away, the time away from things and from all the outside stressors and just being able to sit in yourself, which sometimes is the hardest thing, which is why some of us use just to sit in ourselves and to get our mind free from all the extra added pressures of work and kids or all the things that we have going on in life day to day. So, when you quit after the 9-day taper, I know a lot of people say the withdrawal sometimes lasts longer or like emotionally. How was the first month, maybe the first 30 days? What did that look like?
it was rough emotionally more so than physically, but it was rough. I It really helped me realize, holy crap, how bad off I was. I was minimizing things quite a bit, I think, in my head before going to treatment. This, what am I doing? This seems super overkill. I'm taking leave. I'm like, now I'm basically putting it out to the world that I'm a friggin' kratom addict, whatever. But those first 30 days were rough and made me realize like I I needed the safe space for that time because I was not in any shape to be putting out the best version of myself to the world. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
think
was
that
rough.
like the play down of kratom just because it doesn't have this reputation of crime and violence
Yeah.
or overdose deaths. Sometimes I feel like people look at it like it's not, it's, oh, it's just something from the gas station, just get over it. And it's just, that's why I love this podcast so much because it helps explain it's not just what people think. We didn't just go to GNC or to a supplements and get some creatine and some protein. This was just something that was so much bigger than a lot of us ever even realized it was. And I think it's really great that you had people in rehab that knew what it was. That's really a blessing. It
Yeah.
really is just to,
Yeah.
a lot of people talk about on the podcast, not other people not even knowing or playing it down like it wasn't a big
Yeah.
deal. So even though you were in your
Yeah,
own
I was.
mind,
I
oh, you
was.
got to realize.
I one of my now good friends who the guy that still stayed sober, has now been sober 14 months. He came in for basically the same things I did, Kratom and Adderall, and he was a VP of sales for a tech startup in Lehigh, and really successful dude, married, kids, played professional baseball in his 20s as a pitcher stud. And he came in for, he's probably going to listen to this episode, but he came in for 7-OH and Adderall. And like his first 3 days, everyone in the house could just hear him like screaming and yelling and like pain in his bed because he had been taking, I had only been taking 7-OH for a month or two before coming in. That's how quick my demise was. He'd been taking it for a long time. And what am I trying to say? His tolerance and use was through the roof. And it was horrible to witness like the withdrawals that he went through for the same things, right? Just like much
Mm.
higher doses. And it really opened my eyes to like, this is serious stuff. And I'm not gonna be ashamed about it. I want to contribute to the cause of helping people and creating awareness and hopefully preventing others from getting to the point that I got to and that he got to.
So when you what are some of the tools now? I know you mentioned 12 step. Are you still in that? What are some of the tools that you use day to help?
A lot of shit, a lot of things. I Someone shared with me that early recovery, early sobriety is like holes in Swiss cheese. Like when you cut a piece of Swiss cheese, is Swiss cheese the one with holes in it?
Yeah.
You should add, if you stack slices of Swiss cheese, you slowly plug up all the holes. The holes would be like the relapse risk. And so you layer as much stuff as you can in early recovery to prevent relapse. So for me, it's like getting a sponsor. I had a sponsor all of last year, working the steps, going to meetings, not overkill with the meetings for me at least, but to the few that I like, staying connected with like my sober brotherhood, if you will, because this was an all men program and we stay very active. So I play sober softball on Fridays. Like I said, I did the outpatient program. We like to go like sauna and cold plunge on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I've gotten involved in a little bit of like yoga and breath work, which is new to me, but I have really been liking over the past year. Picking up the phone is even when I don't feel like it. And really just kind of like embracing discomfort, which I shared at the start of the episode. Generally speaking, when I don't feel like doing something, it's an indicator that I probably should do it. So for me, I have the non-negotiables: go to bed by 10 p.m. on the weekdays, go to bed by 11:30 on the weekends, make my bed every morning, go to the gym 5 days a week. All the things. I'm pretty open-minded. I don't think 12 steps is the way for everyone, and I certainly am trying to find a balance. I don't want that to necessarily be like, I don't want to be a full-blown, I just want to find a balance, I guess I could say. Like, I want to have my recovery community, but I also want to have a life outside recovery as well. But those have been the staples for me. trying to think if there's anything else I've done. I think those are the main things.
I think it sounds great, and I was just thinking as you were saying it, all of those things, going to bed, taking care of yourself, exercising, being involved in community, those are all things that came directly from your addiction. And we look at it's like this really healthy lifestyle that for whatever reason we just didn't partake in until recovery. And I think it's such a beautiful thing to see how in the midst of the mess that we've created,
Yeah.
this beautiful, healthy lifestyle can come out of
Right.
it.
Yeah.
And it's just it blows my mind too. I went to bed last night at 9:30 and I just I never did that before, but I
Yeah.
value my sleep so much more now.
Yes. 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 Meditation
Yeah.
too. Meditation's a big one that I try to meditate at least 10 minutes every day. I definitely don't do that perfectly, but and gratitude, right? Again, just like you had mentioned, all the good stuff that comes from recovery, a gratitude practice, writing just simple. Doesn't you don't need to have a pretty gratitude journal that you can if you want, but for me, it's just a notebook, and I just jot down three things at the beginning of the day that I'm grateful for, and sometimes maybe one of those three things turns into a nice text I send someone, like a friend or a family member or whatever. Hey, grateful for all that you do for me, or whatever that looks like. But also, I think I definitely have a little bit of ADHD, and managing that without turning, for me at least, without turning to the stimulants is like I've got to keep my car relatively clean, and I've got to keep my living area clean and my room fairly clean. And someone once told me as well. I just want to share this also, that I love this. This is not my words, but it's a guy that I admire quite a bit in the recovery community. And he said that, so you have in early recovery, you have good days, and then you have, can I swear on this or no? Can we swear? Okay, okay. You have good days, and then you have great fucking days. And he said a good day is when you wake up sober, everything goes according to how you thought the day was going to go, everything goes according to plan. It's a pretty straightforward day. You hit the pillow sober at the end of the night. A great fucking day is when you wake up sober, nothing goes according to plan, putting out fires all day, everything got derailed, whatever the case may be, chaos occurred, but you still made it through the day sober and hit the pillow sober. And and he basically said in early recovery, you're gonna have a lot of great fucking days, which I thought was cool.
That's a great way. That's a great
Yeah.
way to look at it, 100%. And when we can look at ourselves or look at our loved ones and be like, "But I didn't use." Oh, I
Yes.
love that, being able to say that, "Oh, it was chaotic and I couldn't get my head straight at work or whatever, but I didn't use." And sometimes that's the gratitude. That's the number 1 on my list is just I don't know. Sometimes it's hard to just find even one thing, but you're sober, and
Yeah.
that's just what one day at a time means. It's just today, this day, I have this day sober. I wanted to ask you how'd you hear about the podcast?
So I don't remember exactly how I heard about it. I've been listening to variety podcasts for probably the last really since I started this recovery journey. And I think it was when I had put everything down except for the kratom. And when I first attempted to quit kratom, and I was like, what the hell? I can't quit this. I bought a few books off of Amazon, some random books called How I Quit Kratom. It was just a guide. And then I think I came across the Quit K supplement, and then that parlayed into finding out about the podcast. And I remember listening to the first few episodes of the podcast and thinking, oh my God, where has this been my whole life? Not my whole life, but the last 5 months. And I started listening to that pretty religiously. And then I started attending the meetings as well and got connected through that community. I won't mention any names, but I thought it was pretty cool when I would listen to episodes. And again, this is 2 or 3 years back. So this is, I feel like when the podcast is fairly newish. I don't know how long the podcast has been out, but then I'd attend the meetings and I'd be like, oh, I'd heard that person's story when they're in the meeting here. I feel like I've probably seen you in the meetings too. Is that true?
Oh, no, and I
Okay.
haven't gone, and I'm ashamed of saying that, but I have
Okay.
uh, I go to a lot of AA meetings, but I did share my story on the podcast, but I think that's great that you get to
Yeah.
kinda connect with somebody and you've already heard their stories. Because I know I have a lot of my quote and not I love all of them, but I have a couple of my favorites of people's story that just really resonated with me, and it would be cool to get to talk to them.
Yeah.
So that's awesome. No, I'm glad that you're doing that. I'm really
So how did you
thank
get
you too.
connected then? How did you get connected with the podcast?
I was clean off of alcohol for 9 months, I can't remember, but it was early, before a year, and I ran into the extracts and things, and I was trying to get sober. I was trying to maintain sobriety from alcohol and then
Okay,
realized
similar
this
to
other
me.
thing had kinda
Yeah.
stuck in. It's a lot of your story was very relatable. But I was just typing in sobriety, addiction, anything in my Apple Podcasts, and it came up, which I'm so glad it did, and I clicked on it, and the same as you, was like, "Oh my god, I'm not the only one."
Yes,
Because it does feel
that was
like
the
you're the
biggest
only
thing.
one.
Yes, that's you're so right, because that is how I truly felt like I was, like, alone in this battle for months and months until I came across that podcast, and then I was like, "Oh my goodness, this is a game changer." Because I literally was, like, gaslighting myself. "This is insane, why are you struggling with this?" kinda thing early on.
It's like it's not real. This
Yes.
can't possibly be happening. No
Yeah.
way. I'm fine. I said, "I'm
Yeah.
fine" all the time. It's
Oh,
good. It's fine.
all the time. Yeah.
And then to hear somebody else say they struggled coming off of it, because that was the weirdest thing is when I was like, "Okay, I don't have money today," was basically what it was. I don't have money
Yeah.
today to go get it. And then I
Yeah.
had to figure out how to get money because I needed it so bad. So finding this was a godsend. And I wanna give back, and so I just talked to them, and they gave me the opportunity. I had a pretty serious bout with 7-OH, and I brought that to the podcast because not everybody else has done their powders and the extracts and things like that, so they just gave me the opportunity to do this. I'm very grateful that they did.
That's amazing.
It's helped me. It's helped tremendously. I know I listened to the podcast in bed just through withdrawals and through, like, a lot
Yeah.
of things. I just listened to the podcast.
Oh, I was just gonna ask you from a post-acute standpoint, I don't know how much time you have off of Kratom as a whole, 7-OH or whatever, but how has that been for you mostly? Because I feel like that's its own battle in itself after the acute withdrawals, right? It's just feeling motivation and energy and just joy and without feeling flat, at least for me. That's the hard probably the biggest struggle I have day to day now that I'm, like, past the acutes, right?
I think that just the dullness, it lasted for me for quite some time. I took 7-OH for about 7 so blurry because I was such a mess, but several months, maybe
Got you.
7, 8 months, and it was a pretty high amount, and it lasted a long time, but the meetings going to the meetings and having people tell me, "I can see differences in you," and then just sticking with it even when I didn't want to, like you said, those things that I don't wanna do are usually what I should do, and just having to do that and focusing on recovery as being my job. Because I lost my job, it was my job to just stick into recovery, and I got sober in February 11th, 2025, so I'm over a little over a year,
Heck,
and it is back. I'm a runner, the runner's high is back, and that stuff did take some time, though, and it's just, like, I
congrats.
would say 3 thank you, 3 to 6 or 7 months, it was just kinda like
Yeah,
I just blah, music, nothing was very exciting. But I had my mom tell me, she just looked at me one day and was like, "It's okay not to be good." And I tried so hard to keep this facade of everything's perfect and I have energy and I'm happy. And she was like, I just told her I'm tired and I don't feel like doing anything. She was like, "Okay, just don't then. Nobody expects you to be perfect all the time." And that just changed my whole perspective.
it's amazing. Sounds like you have a good mom.
Awesome. She's really great. So, do you have anything else that you want to say to everybody? We have people that have already quit. We have people that want to quit, that are sober curious. Anything that you want to say?
I would just say I would just rehash never quit quitting, and it does get better. it does get better, and I'm saying that from a position of getting sober again. But even last year, I had some pretty high highs. I hit a little bit of a dip, and it was a culmination of things outside of wasn't just my neurochemistry or brain chemistry. I had ended a little bit of a fling I was in, a relationship, and had some intense kind of heavy work stuff thrown at me. It was a combination of things that I had to process and learn from. But it was cool, and it's where it's at for sure. I would say that's it. Just never quit quitting and break it down into chunks one day at a time. If you have to, 1 hour at a time, 10 minutes at a time, whatever it
Yeah.
takes.
Yeah, for sure, and I think you and I are both that testament that there's life after. There is
Yep.
life after, and we used it for whatever reason we used it for, but those reasons, they're just life. If we had
Yep.
pain, if we had emotional pain, if we couldn't sleep or we wanted to use it for anxiety, some of those things are just life things that we have to
Yes.
embrace and learn how to deal with. We can't run from them because I don't know about you, but they multiplied when I used. It just
Big
whatever it
time.
was
Big
got
time.
worse.
For sure. For sure. That's just part of the life experience. You're exactly right. And for me, I turning to the instant gratification of chemicals to numb it temporarily always resulted in it coming back twofold or threefold or fourfold. And there is so many healthy coping mechanisms and tools out there once you open yourself up to that world, and the solutions don't work. They're not instantaneous like using is, but they are healthy and they're beneficial long term and they're very rewarding.
Yep, absolutely. I'm so glad that you were able to be on here and super proud of you for the
Thank you.
56 days and you're coming to the end of this day and tomorrow will be a next one and that's your 57. So just keep on trucking. You're doing great.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we found the time to make it work, and hopefully your car got figured out too,
Oh,
fixed up.
it's not yet, but we're working on
Okay,
it.
gotcha. Take care.
Tons. Okay.
Thank you, Lauren. Bye.
Yep. Bye.